fellow constitutionalists. I want to talk to you today about net neutrality. This has been in the news lately here. I have an article from fee.org by Drew Armstrong. It was posted on the 12th of May of this year. Net neutrality is about government control of the internet. And I know everybody's heard all the arguments on at least from the supporters of net neutrality, from their side of it. And I've seen a lot of folks on YouTube and VidMe who are all for net neutrality. But all the videos I looked at didn't take into account what happens when the government controls things. I think they're looking out for their own best interest, which is fine. They're afraid that without net neutrality and them being a heavy user, that means uploading to these sites a lot of videos and stuff, that they might have to pay more for that. And quite frankly, they should. The internet's a scarce resource and there's only so much bandwidth. And if you want to upload a lot of things to the internet, you should have to pay for that. If your ISP or cable provider or internet provider, whoever that may be, says, yeah, we only have so much traffic, and if you want to have priority, you're going to have to pay for it. And this is the whole issue here, especially on YouTube and VidMe and Facebook and these other sites were very Twitch, which is gaming heavy. They use a lot of bandwidth to do all that over at Twitch. These folks are getting twitchy about what's going on in the future. However, as with healthcare, if Obamacare goes away, everything reverts back to the laws that are still in the books at the state. And in this article, Drew actually talks about, I want to read some excerpts from this article, but he talks about how before the FCC took over or tried to take over, because the rules didn't get in place yet as far as net neutrality. I guess people are working that way, but he talks about in this article here how they were set to go in effect later this year, and Congress voted, and President Trump already signed the measure in the law now to do away with the net neutrality. And the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, was the one that was handling the internet, and that would be through the Commerce Clause, and I think that's the proper place for this to be. Drew talks about we're fine without it, thanks. And I agree with him on this. He says, internet privacy has been protected quite well for almost 20 years by rules that the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, when the FCC enacted the new policy rules, the FTC opposed them as unnecessary. Surely, when the FTC saw new rules would hurt the consumers and weaken consumer protections, those rules should be seriously questioned. Without the FCC privacy rules, the FTC remains active in protecting consumer privacy on the internet. Now, I'm going to stop the reading there. I think it's up to each and every one of us who accesses the internet to take care of our own personal privacy and not rely on our ISP or anybody else to do so. We need to be smart when we're online, in other words. And I know a lot of these people that are for net neutrality also respect their own privacy in that. Okay. He further goes on down in the article. He points some things out about the elimination of the FTC regulations. People who support net neutrality say this is going to harm consumers and the public interest because they were never needed. And this is exactly the position I've always had. These were never needed. Most government regulations were never needed. The red line regulations that partially led to the housing bubble bursting were never needed to begin with. These were social justice tyrants out there acting on behalf of folks that they didn't know, never asked these people if they even wanted their help to begin with. Okay. There's this, in Drew's article here, he talks about the Open Internet Order, OIO, regulating the internet, passed by the FCC in 2015, would have moved the internet in a direction favored by net neutrality ideologues. In the text of the OIO, and folks, this is very important to understand, this is a George Soros-funded net neutrality group. Free press was mentioned 46 times. It's almost as if the free press had written the regulations for the FCC. The OIO sees the internet as something that should be nationalized by the government to run like a public utility. And we all know how good public utilities are actually being run by our federal government. And Drew goes on to explain this. He talks about advocates of this vision include leaders of free press have made it clear that what they want. Robert McChesney, one of the founders of Free Press, stated, and folks, you got to listen to this. What we want to have in the U.S. and in every society is an internet that is not private property but public utility. We want an internet where you don't have to have a password and you don't have to pay a penny to use it. It is your right to use the internet. Here we go again. It's a right. You have a right to use the internet. Okay? And he also went on to say, at the moment, the battle over network neutrality is not to completely eliminate the telephone and cable companies. We're not at that point yet. Not that point yet. But the ultimate goal is to get rid of media capitalists in the phone and cable companies and to divest them from control. They don't like capitalists being in control of the internet. They like government being in control of the internet. And that's a huge problem, folks. I know there's a lot of people out there that may disagree with me on YouTube and VidMe and that, but government control is a huge problem. The list of government agencies compromised by hackers continue to grow, and it's just this last malware attack proves that most of these were big computers, a lot of them were government computers that were hacked. So do we want all of our internet stuff in government computers that can be easily hacked, or do we want it diversified throughout the internet so it's harder for these hackers to get to? To me, that's a no-brainer. I want it in private hands. I want it more difficult, not easier for the hackers to get to. Now, Drew goes on to talk about the public utilities are not private. And he's correct. Your electric utility is not private. It is a public utility. You have, according to the government, a right to this government-created monopoly, which is the electrical grid. Okay? Public utilities do not compete against other entities and are regulated as monopolies, but the internet is not structured that way. Most consumers have a choice in what internet service they'll have. In 20 years, internet providers have invested more than $1.5 trillion in development of the internet in the U.S. Most homes in the U.S. have access to broadband internet at lower rates than consumers pay in Europe, where the service is price regulated. And then he goes on to finish up the last couple paragraphs of this article. I'll put the link in the in the show notes, or not show notes, but in the below the video of this particular article here. There are two clear paths the internet might take depending on which side wins this battle over having a truly free private internet or one controlled by the government as a public utility. While the free market always supports innovation and consumers' choice, government control has only led to corruption and inefficiency in all entities it controls. Okay? And let me stop the reading here. That's why the founders and the framers of this country, the founders of this country and the framers of the Constitution limited they enumerated the powers that the federal government could have and the things that the government could govern over. And I'm telling you, utilities aren't one of them, and the internet definitely is not one of them, folks. Not at all. Supporters have communicated exactly what they want. There can be no confusion about what the net neutrality agenda is all about. Supporters of net neutrality demonize internet service providers in their populist arguments for government control. But if they win their dream, consumers will be the real losers in this battle over internet control. Bottom line, yes, as far as a scarce resource, if you use up more than somebody else is using, you have to pay a little bit more for that. Sorry, that's the way the world works. Go into a grocery store. This is a perfect example. Everything that is eye level. You know, and eye level's different with most folks, so there's a little bit of a range in eye level. A couple shelves are at eye level in a grocery store. Folks that bring products into the grocery store and want to move them more pay a little bit more to have their products put at eye level. Is the government going to come in and regulate grocery stores and say you can't do that? And then tell the grocery stores you got to sell every can of green bean at the same price? Or you name the product. You name the product. Government does not do that in grocery stores. And look at our grocery stores, how well they're stocked. The grocery stores I go to, they're neat, they're clean, they're organized. I know where everything's at. and I can go to another grocery store of the same chain and they're basically in the same area all the time. The government isn't involved in grocery stores, and we have a really good system here in grocery stores. As far as net neutrality, and I'm telling you folks, I believe it's just folks that are afraid they're going to have to pay more for access because they're heavy users. Gamers, myself included, uploading these videos, doing a live show on YouTube, doing a live broadcast on Blog Talk Radio, takes bandwidth. And if it costs me more to do this, and I want to keep doing it, I'll have to pay more. Because I know it's market forces that are driving this. Not some government bureaucrat that says, well, no one should have to pay for internet, or we all have to pay the same price no matter how much we're using. And right now, we're at that point where everybody's paying the same no matter how much we're using. And what these YouTubers and Twitchers and stuff are afraid of, and VidMe folks are afraid of, is they're going to have to pay a little more to do their jobs. That's the price of doing business, folks. That's the price of capitalism. And isn't it a wonderful thing to have that freedom to decide what you're going to do and not have to rely and put it off on somebody else's back? You know, I want to pay my way. I don't want the government or someone else to pay my way on this show as far as my access and being equal with someone that just does emails on the internet. And they don't have that option of paying less because that's all they're doing. These are just my thoughts on net neutrality. Please, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you like that on YouTube. Same way on VidMe. Give me an upvote on VidMe. And if you like what I'm doing here, by all means, tip me and on VidMe, or like I said, on YouTube, comment on it. I love comments. I love to get into discussion with folks about all these things. I think freedom is a great thing, and the freer we can make the internet, the better it's going to be for everybody. Have a great rest of the day, and God bless.